I recently learned that certain fae monsters, specifically not humanoids, have beef with each other. They've got some drama, and it makes sense. Some creatures are going to be natural enemies, but for some reason, I never really thought about the fact that some D&D monsters have political divides. I mean, it sounds kind of ridiculous, right? But if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings and other modern classic fantasy and even older fantasy, evil creatures tend to have evil-aligned beasts and vice versa. Not just creatures they've trained to do their bidding or who independently learn to act evil according to human standards, but creatures that seem inherently evil themselves, as if they share a moral code with a broader community. Blink dogs are medium fae and lawful good. I talk all the time about fae being chaotic, and I will admit that I willfully ignore talking about D&D's lawful fae alignments. I don't feel like tackling that right now, but blink dogs are lawful good and aligned with the Seelie Court. Displacer beast, which are arguably way cooler, if I'm gonna be honest, are lawful evil aligned with the Unseelie Court. Not just naturally, but politically, they are diametrically opposed. The D&D Beyond website literally says, and I quote, "Displacer beasts and blink dogs attack each other on sight." It's on sight. And to be fair, the more I read about Displacer beasts, they do seem pretty evil. But why exactly are they opposed to one another? What are the Seelie and Unseelie Courts, and how can you play up their dynamics and culture in your game? If you're not familiar or need a refresher, the Seelie Court is the traditionally good aligned fae court ruled by Queen Titania of the Summer Court. I put good in quotes because the Seelie Court is not necessarily inherently good, I guess depending on who you ask. Rather, it's a court that values light, but more specifically, follows Titania. Her sister, the Queen of Air and Darkness, rules the Unseelie Court, which values darkness. This court is more likely to be full of evil fae, but again, it's not a hard rule that either is good or evil. It's just a general expectation. So if it helps, think of these two courts as the two main kingdoms of the Feywild. Not every fae aligns with one or the other, but they're so broad and influential that even those not part of either will probably have their own opinions about the court's goings-ons. Goings-ons? Which means that if you're adding to or creating your own fairy plane, you have a built-in system for political drama, not just between humanoids, but between all creatures. And because of the nature of the Feywild, these dynamics can play out in some really cool ways. Think about the Chronicles of Narnia. One of the most frightening parts of the children's entering Narnia and learning about the war going on is that even the trees and birds could be watching and listening to them. In some places, the only way to communicate safely is with hushed voices in the homes of friends. And even then, some friends might not be so friendly. In a realm like the Feywild, you can include similar features. If your players are in the realm of a Seelie or Unseelie Archfey, the very land might be similarly aligned, as are the creatures within. This dynamic also adds some order to the chaos of the lands, since despite the Feywild being a place of ultimately little progress or change, the party will still find something or someone to fight for, or they'll at least have an orientation to work with when encountering other creatures. Rather than everything being incomprehensible and strange, they're provided with at least a political grounding. A whole realm generally falling under one or the other court also gives you the chance to include some backstabbing and betrayal. The party may come across who they think is a member of the Seelie Court in a Seelie realm, only to find out later that this new friend wasn't so friendly. Or they come across a supposedly Unseelie fae in the Unseelie Court, but one who's actually undercover and in support of Titania. Finding a creature like this could be a much needed bit of respite for a party in a potentially enemy realm, though one still twinged with the thought that the whole encounter could be a trick. You know, I have to throw in some more encounter ideas. How could I not? First though, and this has nothing to do with the point of this video, thoughts on bicycles in the Feywild. One easy encounter that you can throw in pretty much anywhere is an inter-court conflict between two creatures. The party could come across two fairies bickering, a blink dog and displacer beast in the midst of combat, or even a border between a Seelie and Unseelie court, where the land itself seems to be in a never-ending war. You could actually make a crossing point here, where the risk is in the crossfire between crashing trees, high winds, and creatures hurling rocks back and forth. And the conflict there never ceases. If two creatures are in a verbal or physical fight, the party could, of course, just stay out of it, unless they pick a side and want to join in. But especially if they're new to the Feywild, this encounter would be a good way to imply some lore and conflict without dumping it on them through more matter-of-fact dialogue. On the other hand, maybe they come across star-crossed lovers who come from opposing courts but have fallen madly in love with one another. They don't know where to go to be together in peace, so maybe the party can help them reach a wild space where they can make a home. Doing so could earn the party a valuable trinket or token from the grateful lovers, one that can be traded for an important or expensive item or favor later. Consider adding items into your game that belong to opposing realms. I've come across an item called a Seelie Court jewel, which I think is homebrewed, but I couldn't find the original author. When I looked it up, I only saw it on Pinterest or iFunny of all places, but it got me thinking. A beautiful jewel that turns into an equally beautiful sword and grants the attuned additional spells? In a realm of chaos that still requires balance, what if for every item of this kind, its opposite existed? Equally beautiful, but in a darker way, thornier with nastier spells. The food between courts could differ too, and not in inherently evil or good ways. The Seelie court may have more of an abundance of desserts, sweets, pastries, whereas the Unseelie court is heavier on spicy or bitter foods. Maybe the mark of a good fae from either court is that they imbibe in their court's preferred dishes. But there's a secret black market trading route from both places for those who want a little more variety. That might be a dumb idea, but add cultural differences and markers between the two courts that are less about politics and more about signaling. And if you do, like with the differences in cuisine, that also gives your party a chance to use scones and hot peppers as gambling chips and bribes. That's the kind of weirdness I want to see in the fairy realm. In the manner of dress, of course, I've seen people in my comments suggest that the Unseelie court is just a bunch of goths, which super fair. Maybe have Unseelie fae decorate themselves with darker colors, thorny leaves, crowns of poisonous berries, perfume themselves with coffee and patchouli. The Seelie fae might wear more gossamer and favor bright, non-poisonous flowers, soft, fuzzy petals, anything colorful, perfume that smells like lilies and citrus fruits. Having a cultural look to different fae creatures gives your party something to work with if they're ever looking to blend in, or even if they just have different tastes and preferences themselves. They might love a chance to do some shopping at a fae market. Let me know what ideas you have for some neutral yet distinct differences between the courts, or any encounter you've run that you've had a lot of fun with. And then go and check out my Patreon if you're wanting to support me and the channel, and then go have a great whatever it is. Are you writing all this down? You need to be writing this down.